Today's daf is daf ches. We are up to the Mishnah. The very last thing we learned was that that you can add to your davening to every bracha called that bracha, and the Gemara gives examples of somebody who is sick or somebody who needs parnasa. But interesting, Rashi adds a few more examples. Rashi says that Rashi gives a few more examples. Rashi gives an example of somebody's forgetful. What you learn, and you ask for, you should have a good memory. If someone's about tshuva, by slach lanu, Rashi says you should be mayrich and add over there. Interesting, Rashi has to feel this to give more examples than what the Gemara gives. We are up to the Mishnah of Chesam and Aleph. The Elu Eideich Ovichav. We'll give you a list of some of their holidays, but obviously everything is relative in different places. But this is a list at that time. Calendar. We'll see what these holidays are later on. Saturna from Saturn, the Kartisim, and another holiday called Kartisim, and the Gemara for all these. And the Yom Genusa Shel Malkeim, and we'll see later the coronation or the Yom Haleda, the Yom Misa, the day they were born, the day that everyone then celebrates his birthday. And they bring sacrifices to their idols, and the Yom HaMisa, the anniversary of his passing. Divrei Rameir, and the Chachamim say, Kol, just because he died doesn't automatically mean it becomes a religious festival. It depends. Kol Misa sheyesh b'yisrei, any Misa which is not significant that we take all of his assets and we burn it with him because it was so special. Then yesh b'yisrei, then there is a chance that there'll be idol worship. But if they don't burn their assets with him, and we'll talk about later in Gemara as well, then it's not. That means he was not so significant. They ain't there's no way to Abel, interesting. Yom taklachas ziknoi, the day they used to shave their beard off for religious reasons. Uvelorisai, and the day when they leave behind the lump of hair, the back of the head, which again is a religious experience. If we're talking about a king or we're talking about every individual. The day that they were saved from the sea, the Yom the day they came out of jail, and if somebody made a festival for his son getting married, which is a big deal. Surely they give thanks to their gods, but it's not that significant that we should give it 3 days prior and make it usher. Only that particular person. From the language of they want to say we're not talking about a king here, we're talking about any guy who's going through one of these experiences. And others say no, we're talking about that particular king. Says the Gemara, we already had this a few years ago. This festival calendar was 8 days. Achat Kufa, when the winter season started, winter solstice, the next 8 days, which covers, at least in our calendar today, because we know the calendar's changed all the way through New Year, and all the way up to New Year. Saturna is Ches Yom Milifnei Kufa. Saturna is 8 days prior to Kufa. Solstice is December 21, so 8 days prior and 8 days post, but two different festivals. The Simona. So why are we describing to you the later festival first? To remember that the Prophet says that what's later, and then what's first. That's how I create. So we see the same thing there. Talking about to learn where do these festivals come from. So interesting what happened here. Now just bear in mind, Adam Rishon was born. He had no one to explain to him the rules of the world, the rules of the universe. So he saw that every single day, the days, the size of the day is getting smaller and smaller. Now, obviously, the first few days will be very hard to tell. It's only we're talking about very short times, but over time you realize it's getting getting into the winter, and the days are getting shorter. Amar, I know I sinned later that, but what was to me? Maybe because I sinned, the world is slowly entering its demise. The Chayzel is going back to naught. This is the form of death. David just said that you gave me. Maybe this is it. Every day the sunlight gets less and less and less. Eventually, everything's going to disappear. So he stood up. He stood up and he fasted for eight days with tefillah and davening. Then he came to Kufas Tavis. Then he saw now it's spring and and he saw now that the days no longer getting shorter. In fact, slowly but surely the days are getting longer. He said, this is nature. This is how the world is going to work. So he went ahead and made another 8 days Yom Tov. to celebrate the fact that the world's demise is not inevitable, it's not happening. In the Shon Acher, the following year, that following year, the last 8 days of the season and the first 8 days of the season, he made the Yom Tov. Who called him Shemaim? He did it for the sake of heaven. He wanted to thank Hashem. But the few generations, Kavum L'Shem Avodah Zarah. The few generations, they took it and they made it for Avodah Zarah. So that's why that and these two Yom Tovim, these two festivals, calendar and Saturn. Bishla Madam Betishin one said that what was created Tishrei. So therefore, Yom Zute Chaz. What did he see straight away? He only saw days that are short. Yom Maricha Katlachaz. He never went through a summer experience. He had no idea days that get longer. That's why he was petrified. El Madam Betishin the one who said it was born in this, and which is what the days are getting longer and longer. So he saw the days are getting longer and longer. Then they get short. He should have realized right away that this is the nature of the world. These are the rules of the universe. Why was he so frightened? So short days and long days. As soon as Pesach happened, the days were still pretty short, but as he went into the summer season, it was much longer. So he didn't see the days, he didn't go through a winter yet, and he didn't see the days so short. And therefore he thought, this must be the mice. Maybe Takas had long days, but that's it. That was the past, no longer. Because he never saw such short days. You're talking about going through seasons. We actually have another brayse that was the day itself. The day created. The sun set. Amar, he thought, he thought that's it. The world's coming to an end. That's Friday night. The Yachzer went back to North Bezui. That's my punishment. He sat and he fasted on Shabbos proper. And he cried, Kol Halayla, he cried the entire night. The Chava, Chava was crying as well. Kiva and Shalom L'Shachar. Suddenly it was daybreak. Omar, light is coming back. Min Haga Shalaylamu. Omar, he went ahead. He was makiv a carbon. Shoir. It sounds like he did it on Shabbos. Shoir. Shekarnov Koidmil Parsaisov. It says that the Abishah created the world, he created everything to its full glory. So Behemoth was created ready full glory with the horns, but since it came from the ground, so first the head came out and then the rest of the body. So the head came out with the horns. So the first thing that came out was the horns. So Shoid, he makriv an animal shekarnav that its horns koidemas leparsaisav or koidmin leparsaisav, horns that came before its hooves. Shenemar. And how do you know that? It says a pasuk, "Vasitav Hashem, let my davening be to Hashem better than shoir par, better than a shoir and a par. A shoir is as soon as it's born, a par is when it's a few years old already. But this animal, as soon as it was created, it was very like a par. But really, in age-wise, it was only a shoir, just created. Makrin mafris. Now what? That first was the keren, and then was the legs, the feet, the hooves. The Rebbe of Rango spoke that since everything was created with Kamas in Hebrew, so how old was Adam when he was created? Broke down from Medrash that Adam was 20 years old, as if the prime of a person, from the Bachar Yeshiva, that the prime of a life of a person is when they're 20 years old. It's the best time in life, even then other B'rishon, and therefore you shouldn't waste it and use it for the best, to sit and learn. Said of name Shmuel, Shoir Shehikriv Adam Adishon. The Shoir that Adam Adishon brought up, was Keren Achas, it was a unicorn. It only had one horn, the mitzchay in its forehead. Shenema, because as a pasuk, Vasitav LaHashem Mishoy Porin, Makrin, Makrin Mafris, and Makrin is Lashon Yachid, one horn. So for the Gemara asks, Makrin Tarti Mashmo, you read it, Makrin, that's plural, that's two horns. What do you get one horn for? From Amralach Yitzchak, Makrin Ksiv is valued as if it's only one horn. My father used to say, and I don't know if this is his word or if he saw it somewhere, that why Takidon should bring a unicorn? Why bring such a modern animal? So he says the whole idea of a keren is, and the pasuk that the kanayim you use to menagech, you harm. Horns are used to harm other people, other things. Every time a person does an aveda, you're harming yourself. You're also harming the entire world around you. Our purpose is to make a deal with training, not just for me, but the entire world. And when you do an Aveda, you're doing the opposite. So you bring an animal with two horns, because you're hurting yourself, you're hurting all the people around you. They learn from you, Marsai and everything else. But Adam Rishon was no one else but himself. So therefore, all he needed was one horn, because the only one that did damage was to himself when he does Aveda at that time. So the Gemara says, "Weiter Rav Masna Roimi, the Amar Rav Masna Roimi is also calendar Rome that made this festival of calendar. And all the neighboring cities, Mishtabdus law that are subordinate to Rome. One thing Rome they celebrated, where others say they didn't celebrate, but what they did was they would send up. If you did business with them, they would send the profits, maybe charity, whatever, give it to Rome. So therefore they'd be involved, but it's not local; it's for Rome. How do we treat that? Is that included in the Gzeir or not? Rav Shmuel says, "Kalandos Chaldi." So it's everybody. Those who worship it, only people in Rome. Tonica was a bit tackle in the Bryce like a beer, and also count, even though Rome itself did this festival, the Cholayoris, that's Mukhas, Mishtabas, and you have all the neighboring cities that are so completely supported to Rome. He asks Nevertheless, this festival is only forbidden for people in Rome who worship this idol, not for everybody else. Then the Gemara says, and the Kartisim and the Yom Genusa Shal Malchayim, the Yom Shulomei Melech, and the anniversary of the day that the king becomes the king, is the fun of Asr Achramut. So all of these festivals only prior to that, Asr, but not after that. But if a guy makes, no, it's still Asr a few days before. If a guy makes a wedding for his own son, and definitely on the day that he marrying of his son, he's so over, ebullience and so overjoyed that he would go ahead and worship his idol. And also, only that particular, like the Mishnah says, only that particular day is forbidden, but not the 3 days before. And only that particular person is involved in the wedding, not the whole city. We learned. The day that he shaved his beard over the Rasa and he leaves his blood on the Yom Shalom, I mean, the Yom Shiach, the Surin, Ein Asr Ella Isayim Avad, but Isaish, only that person that day. Now, why you have to say only that day? Because other festivals is 3 days prior, is also to deal with the Goyim. So therefore, we're telling you here, but here's only also on that day. Fine. Lafuki Lafonov, Ulach, Isaish. What do you mean that person? Lafuki Mai. What are you coming to exclude? Obviously, somebody who did not cross the sea, or somebody who's not shaving his beard, they don't have a festival. So you need to tell me that there's no problem dealing with those guys there. Is lafuki mai lav lafuki is coming to exclude mishabadu, coming to exclude that those people who are subordinate to that person, you could deal with them, even though ultimately the money might wind its way up back to this person. That's too remote, and we're not going to ask it. Shema Mino is a good idea. Tanya, we learned the Bryce. Rabbi Shmuel said, "Yisrael shebechutz Eden uchutz are oivdei avodas kachavim betara." They're worshiping Avodah Zarah in their innocence, without realizing what they're doing. We had the more exubis at the end, kol adorba bechutz laretz is kila ein lakah, as if he has no God, and kol adorba etzro kila yesh lakah. Interesting. Those people who believe that the 3 shvuos still remain, and you're not allowed to go to Israel through today, till Mashiach comes, so they bring it out from that very Gemara. And they're doing exactly the opposite. They say, "Kol misha dor b'chush la'aretz kimisha ein le'lekat." I mean, really do have an Eibusher, but it's like they don't. But in Eretz Yisrael, it says, "Kol misha dor b'Eretz Yisrael kimisha yesh le'lekat." So they like to have an Eibusher, but they don't, because you went there and you violated the 3 shruts. Anyway, so here it says a little bit differently, and it's not kimisha ein le'lekat, but rather it's kilo v'jazor b'tara. What do they do? Kate said, because of Ava, we mingle and we circulate with them, and they invite us to things. We go there. So what happens? A goy, or idol worshiper, made a chasna for his son. He did the right thing. He invited all the neighbors, including all the Eden. And he said, "I'll provide for you. I'll have a kosher caterer coming in. I'll have a mashgiach walking around, making sure there's constant kosher. Are you allowed to go to that wedding?" He said, even though they eat from the goy and the drink from the goy, and you have your own shamba standing there. Sorry, the Eden's food. Sorry, they have it's kosher food, and they drink kosher wine, and they have their own mashgiach. It's as if they ate from the animals for worship. Why? Because the pasuk says, the crow will invite you, will call you, you'll eat from his kabbanis. And the pasuk starts off saying that what you're going to end the covenant with the Eibishter. and you're going to follow other Avodah Zarah. So that's what it's talking about. So Gemara, how do you know? They maybe only they ate it, but they ate kosher, and who says a problem? If so, the Torah should have just said, the pastor should have just said, you ate from his zevach. What do you have to? What does the Torah have to add the words? And he will call you and invite you. Meshas kriya. At the moment you're going towards that is already as if you did it. The same thing. The flip side is by a mitzvah. The moment you start going to a mitzvah, the Rebbe Fabrengen once spoke about how come Rab Nachum, the Middle Rebbe's son, when he was to tell the story, Yitzhak Kislev, he would start that Al Rebbe had a dilemma: should he go to Mizrich or should he go to Vilna? If he wants to learn, he go to Mizrich. If he wants to daven, he'll go to Vilna. And then the Rebbe said that I'm not going to tell the story every year. Yitzhak Kislev start from there, and every time somebody walked in the middle, he would start all over again because I have to hear it from there. And the Rebbe asked, it's like right in the middle of the story. You want to start from the beginning down to Rebbe's life, start when his father was by the Baal Shem to start from the beginning. And made a Suda. Or if you want to start the story of this Kislev, start at Al Rebbe was the Rebbe ready, and he was made for Chassidus, and then the rest happened. So the Rebbe said, no. The moment he decided to go to Mizrich, because davening, I don't know how to daven. Learning, I can learn a little bit, but davening, I don't know how to daven. The moment Al Rebbe made a decision to go there, that's when he became Rebbe. That's when it all happened. The moment you're going there, you see right here. The moment they were going there already, even though they didn't get anything, it's already as if they did everything. The Gemara, we're on the base on top of the page, which we're going through different festivals. So the last thing we said was if you live in Chutzlars, as if you eat idol, as if you ate zivche mesim, if you go to a party that going to make, even though it's the idol worshippers make, even though it's all kosher and the mashgiach and everything else. This is the dilemma Rabbanim have if you're in the Masada Kedushin, but they make a tray for wedding, but they'll give for the rabbi and anybody else who really cares kosher food. Are you allowed to attend such a wedding or not? There's a big argument around the world amongst the Rabbanim, and another question is whether you should even participate in that chuppah in the first place. Are you sanctioning what's going on, having a tray for reception? Anyway, every place. The guy is making a party because he just shaves his beard or whatever. He made a big party and he invited Eden to come and he made a kosher section there. Everything was kosher. He's talking about a chassan. He made a chassan for his son. He invited Eden to come. Anymore, it says now how long is this usher for? So he wants as follows. Called Klassen Yamin for 30 days after the chassan. We have Shabbat. Stay for 30 days of the chassan. They keep on celebrating. We do have an Indian that we make a bracha. What do you call it? The last bracha we make the entire year. If they make something for the honor of the chassan, the kala, you make the last bracha. That's the Shabbat bracha. The last bracha for the entire year. But here we say yes. Cold Klassen Yamin 30 days post the wedding. It's the same problem. It's always assuming it's made for the weddings. You have to be careful about Avodah Zarah. Bein Amalei Machmas and Lula. Bein Amalei Machmas. Whether he says I'm making the party and whether he gave a reason or not, also forbidden. Beyond 30 days depends. I'm making a party for my son. They just came back from the honeymoon. Then also you're not allowed to go there. You're not allowed to attend. If it does not say to you, then you're allowed to. Says the Gemara with so what's the limit? The rest of his life? Up to 12 months, if he says I'm doing this in honor, he's still very happy. After 12 months, even if he does it for that honor, the joy is no longer there. Because after 12 months, he's left somewhat, and therefore it's not really avodah zarah. You're allowed to go if you makes kosher. So the Gemara prior, how much? Also, how much before the wedding is already, in a festive mood and it's forbidden. An interesting Rava, but a papa, we know, made beer and a very wealthy man. So obviously that's how he thinks. So Papa said, name of Rava, as soon as they put the barley into these vats to produce beer, it's awesome. That's what Rashi says in the first shot. Taisha says, I don't agree because nobody used to make beer out of barley in those days. They used to make it out of dates and hyssop. But from hops, but not from barley. So Taisa says, I like Rashi's second shot. Rashi is very interesting second shot. Rashi said that they used to, similar to Margitin, but they used to take a barrel, fill it up with dirt, and plant barley there. And then by the time the wedding comes along, the barley would sprout and start growing. And then you could give it to the chassan and say that your marriage or your union should grow just like this barley grew. So that's what it was. That was a symbol give me a blessing for a chas v'kala. I'm going to put me in the rubber. Lebasa says the achar shas shari after permitted. Is that what you're saying? How can that be? We hold that even after 12 months, if the party, the occasion is connected somehow to the wedding, it is Avodah Zarah involved. You shouldn't be telling them. How do I know that? Because Rabbi Breda Mishasha, Rabbi the son of Mishasha, equal there was a chaver once came to this guy. The boss said it was post 12 months. The Shammai, and he heard the guy standing there and thanking his God. He no longer ate. He refused to eat anymore because of Avodah Zarah. No, you just said the limit of 12 months. Because he was an Adam Chashuv, because he was an Adam Chashuv, the guy was so happy that Rabbi Yitzchak graced his house with his presence. For that alone, he worshipped and he therefore extended. So the joy for the wedding sort of was revived because of Rabbi Yitzchak. Anybody else, it wouldn't be an issue. After 12 months already, the simcha is not that great. So the Gemara, yeah, then we might. The Karkasim, what kind of Yom Tov is this festival? Is this Karkasim? My Karkasim, what's Karkasim? Amr Rabbi Mishmul Yom Shetofsa B'Reimi Malchut. The day that Rome conquered the Greeks and were successful. So the Gemara and Tesis brings that in Greek the word Karkasim means to be victorious or to conquer. It means to conquer. So the Gemara about Tanya, you look at the rise of Kartasim, the Yom Shetosah Malchus. It says Kartasim and the day that they seize control. So it's not the same thing. But Rabbi said, Shtei Trisas Tafsa Roimi. Roimi actually had two conquests. Achad b'mei Cleopatra, who was the queen of Egypt, and Malchus the queen, and Achad Shetosah Me'avonim. And the second one was the time of the Greek. So there were two Kartasim. And in fact, word Kartasim is in plural because there were two conquests. What's the story? Oh, it's a very fascinating story here. You won't find this in their history books. It says the following. When Avdimi came, he said 32 battles were waged between the Romans and the Greeks. They couldn't overcome the Greeks. They were too powerful. So the Romans turned around to the Yidden and said, you know what, why don't we make a partnership together? We're going to conquer the Greeks. This is during the Beis Hamikdash. This is what they made up between them. This is the kind of agreement they had. If we become the royal family, we become the kings of Rome, said to Eden, then you guys become the officers, you collect the taxes and all that. You administrate the entire kingdom. And if you guys become the king, the Eden will become the king of Rome, then Minon, that will be the administration. And the Eden accepted. And now the Romans sent the following message to the Yevanim. Till now we had a battle. You know what? We're not getting anywhere. Not you, not us. I'll tell you, it's like a war of attrition, but we're both losing. So I'll tell you, I have an idea. Let's have an IQ test. Let's go follow logic. Let me ask you a question. Magoli, you have a Magoli, a precious stone, and another kind of a precious stone, or a pearl, and a precious stone. Which is inferior to the other one, so it'll be sitting on the table supporting the other one. So they responded, Magoli is Levan Teva. Obviously, a pearl is worth less than a precious stone. Okay, then they asked, Evan Teva and the Enoch. You have this precious stone, and you have this onyx. Which is more significant, which is inferior, which is going to be the bottom. And then Teva, so they said, the precious stone compared to an onyx is much more chashiv. Enoch was Sefer Torah. Well, we know the Greeks respect Sefer Torah. They made a septuagint. They translated Torah into the languages, 70 languages. So let me ask you. The Romans asked, you have an Enoch Sefer Torah, which is inferior, which is superior. So they answered, Enoch Sefer Torah. So said back to him, aha, Im Kenanan Sefer Torah Gabon. We have the Sefer Torah because Yisrael Bahadon. We have this agreement with the Eden. That's the Sefer Torah. So therefore, you need to give up your arms, surrender to us. Which is an amazing story. So the Greeks gave up just because the Eden joined the Romans. 26 years, the Gematu Hashem Havaya, the Eden were in control together with the Romans, and there was Shalom. Kamlu Bemnusa Bahadi Yisrael, they worked faithfully together with the Eden. And then Mikanda Elich, but after 26 years, they turned against the Yidden. They subjugated the Yidden to serve them. What's going on here? Mikora, my daughters are my daughters. What happened? Why did they think the Chatzil didn't have to be with them? And then they changed their mind. Mikora daughters, first they dash in the passage where it says that Yaakov said to Esav, or Esav Yaakov, Nisa v'nilcha v'ilcha legdecha. We'll go together. So there has to be a truce, there has to be a partnership between Yaakov and Esav. And all the Seiv daughters, the Endi Dashand, he said here, Yaakov said to Esav, you know what? You go ahead of me, and then I'll come eventually. I'll come to say, eventually Mashiach will come. So therefore, they separated. So how do you know that there were 26 years that they joined together, that they were together in peace, the Romans and the Eden? Then when Rabbi Shmuel was sick, Sholchale said to him, Rebbe, tell us what your father said 2 or 3 things before he died. He said to them, my father said, Meya ushmoinim shana, koidem shenechla b'bayis, 180 years prior to Churban Beis Sheni, Pashta Malchus Hashar Yisrael. And we're going to prove that it was actually 206 years before that the Romans took over. And yet my father said only 180 years before when all these Sodas started. That means that 26 years, which is not accounted for, the Eden and the Romans worked together hand in hand. What happened during these 180 years? So he says here, Pashta Malchus Hashar al Yisrael, pay Shana for 80 years, Ad Lechadav Abayis, 80 years prior to Churban Beis Hamikdash, goes through Tuma al Eretz Amim. It will go that the moment you step outside of Yisrael, you become Tameh, with the Rabban, to stop people from going out. The Al Kleis Chuchis and also on glass Kalim. Mem Shana, 40 years, and we looked at the shops. Mem 40 years, Ad Lechadav Abayis, 40 years prior to Churban Beis Hamikdash, goes to Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin went to exile, they left the Lishkot HaGozis, and they went to exile. Yashallah B'Chanus, and they went to a place called Chanus, still on the Temple Mount, but on the bottom. Why did they do that? First thing I want to say, and they didn't rule on dinner knossos. Like somebody who's ma'anis a girl or seduced a girl, all the different kind of knossos that Torah establishes, or if you kill an Ebed, you pay 30, all of these things. What do you call it? It didn't exist. Interesting, Rashi includes in that the Seder of murder, as if the Seder Rashi is following that the Seder of murder did happen. But now, during that period of 80 years, it didn't. During that 40 years, it didn't happen. Why? Because you can only rule in Lishkot HaGozis and these Dinik classes, not after Lishkot HaGozis. Says the Gemara, because also Rashi explains that they are Shir and Elakim. Elakim means you have smicha, and therefore also it's a place, and this is by Lishkot HaGozis. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? Rabbi Yehuda, Dinik Knossos, that's why they didn't have Dinik Knossos, only the Bezdin and Lishkot HaGozis. Remember, remember we have a Sanhedrin. Remember this person, Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba Shemai. His name was Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba. He is the one who is the link to Smicha to Moshe Rabbeinu. Shemali, when he's talking to Knossos, not for him, but Dinik Knossos be forgotten by the Eden. The Shach will be forgotten. The Gasino doesn't learn. The whole Dine Knossos would have been cancelled amongst the Eden. The Goyim, they know that our biggest strength is our education and our jurisprudence. So they made a rule. They said, anybody who gives smicha should be put to death. Anybody who accepts smicha should be put to death. And any city that allows this to happen in their environments should be decimated. And the Tchum Shasayim and even outside the city, within the Tchum, should be completely uprooted. Ma'os Abid ben Baba. Holach v'Yoshev b'Shnei Harim Doim is between 2 mountains, the 2 large cities, Beit Chum Shabbos, right in between, so neither city can be culpable. Bein Usha l'Shifra, but these were places. V'Samach Sham Chamisha Skenim, and he gets me the 5 elders, Rab Meir, Rab Yehuda, Rab Yosi, Rab Shimon, Rab Elazar, and Shmuel, and Rab Avia Moshe Afram Nechemia. There's a machlekes of Nechemia and Meir, the same person. Rab Avia holds a knot, so he says also Rab Nechemia. When the enemies realized somehow or another, somebody must have informed. So Rabbi Yehuda Baba said, the Goyim are coming here, they're coming to attack us. Please flee for your lives. We need you to have smicha to spread around and continue the chain from Moshe Rabbeinu. And you need smicha for knossos. And this is way after Churban Beis Hamikdash. So we see there was still knossos going on. Only Chutzlah, the Baba did. After Matei Lech was coming to you, like a stone that can't be turned around. I'm too old to run. When the goyim came to Mount Land, they didn't leave, they didn't depart from the Yehuda Babach, not to Legufay until they stabbed them. Gimel Meyos Luli noise, 300 stabs. So Basel, from these like daggers from metal. His whole body became like a sieve. Right? Why is he going to have to give us these gory details? They killed him. Like Tama, the Knossos. So the Chayim, what do you tell me there was no Dina Knossos that once the Sanhedrin moved? Don't tell me Knossos, so like don't Dina Fascists. No longer they did murder. In my time, why not? Even the Chazan, the future race, there were so many murders coming out. Like Yochel made, and they couldn't go judge everybody. I'm going to mutav niglum and makel and makom, so you don't have to take responsibility. It's like they gave into defeat, they abandoned hope of having a civilization where people just killing each other right till the percent. In order that we should be only with that place. You need to be in order for all the didn't do their job. May Yishmael I'm going back to the Brisa. 180 no more, but 100 basically, but maybe Malchus Poras beefing and I'll make a cheshbon of 420 years. So Malchus Poras before the base and make the Shloishim Arba Shana. That's what they had the first 34 years of Malchus Poras because they built the base of Migdash, the Yavish, and so on. Malchus Yavan. Even though Rashi says Kodesh built it, Kodesh actually started, but he stopped, and then many years later they could resume building. But I guess because he started, we call it Kodesh. Malchus Yavan, the Greeks, then from their base, Meir 180 years. Malchus, not for during the base, in front of the base, right, front. Malchus Chashmonoi b'fnei base Chashmonoi was Meir b'shol 103 years. And Malchus base Hudas Meir b'shol. So between Chashmonoi and Hudas is the last 206 years. And then from here, if you want to ever in the future, the H stutters, they would say, date it back to the Chur Beis HaMikdash. That's how you calculate the years. So what do we see from here? And the Romans started from the Chashmonai, because the Greeks were defeated. So he says here, Alma Mosin V'Shis it was 206 years in total. The Eden and the Romans took away the pushed the Greeks out, and it says here 206 years the Eden started, right? Malchus Chashmonai Eden started 206 years before. You just said 180. The must be the first 26 years that Chashmonai reigned, they were good together with Malki Raimi, and they weren't subjugated to the Romans. We don't count it. Only when Malchus Shah spread the hand and they betrayed the Eden 26 years after the Chashmonai started, so then they only have 180 years for the Churban. And tomorrow we'll continue the Cheshbonus to work out these years for Beis HaMikdash.